Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into a topic today that I think is pretty fascinating. It's something that's personal, but also like a big part of how American society works.
Yeah.
I'm talking about divorce. We're going to be looking at excerpts from an article called
Oh, interesting.
The Rapid Rate of Divorce in the USA: Causes, Impact, and Consequences. So by the end of this deep dive, you're not just going to know how divorce rates have changed,
Right.
but we're going to get into the reasons behind those changes
Yeah.
and what it all means for families and individuals.
The why is important.
It's going to be super interesting.
Absolutely. It really makes you think about how divorce as like a concept has
Yeah.
evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to think of it as a modern problem.
Yeah.
But this article points out that divorce even existed back in colonial America.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, think about that.
So it did exist, but it was way less common back then.
Uh-huh.
Marriage was more about practical stuff like economic stability, not so much about romantic love. It's wild to think that divorce was almost unheard of then.
It really shows you how much things have changed.
Yeah.
The Industrial Revolution was a big turning point, you know?
Oh, yeah. How so?
Suddenly women had opportunities to earn their own money.
Oh.
They weren't completely dependent on a husband to survive financially.
Right.
That gave them more freedom.
Freedom to leave unhappy marriages.
Exactly.
So that shift in power dynamics eventually led to the first no-fault divorce law in California in 1970.
Yeah, that was huge.
It totally changed the game, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh.
It basically meant that couples could get divorced without having to prove that someone did something wrong.
Wow.
You know, combined with changing social norms and the rise of individualism, this really fueled what we know as the divorce boom of the 70s and 80s.
The divorce boom.
It was a big deal.
Okay, so this is where it gets really mind-blowing.
Right.
During that time period, divorce rates in the U.S. doubled. Basically, for the first time in American history, more marriages ended in divorce than death.
Crazy, huh?
That's just
A total reshaping of...
such a crazy statistic.
It really was.
It must have had a huge impact on society.
Yeah, it totally changed the concept of family. The article talks about a bunch of factors that contributed to this increase.
Like what?
One really interesting one is the role of unrealistic expectations.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, like we're constantly bombarded with these romanticized ideas about marriage.
Movies and TV shows and stuff.
Yeah, and that can make us disconnect from what relationships are actually like in real life.
It's so easy to fall for the happily ever after fairy tale.
Right.
But real relationships are messy, you know?
Yeah.
They need effort, compromise, and sometimes just being willing to have hard conversations.
Totally. The article even calls it the Hollywood effect.
Haha, I like that.
We're always seeing these perfect versions of love and marriage.
Right, right.
But real life is different.
Yeah.
And when those challenges pop up, some couples just aren't ready to deal with them.
It's like we're all secretly hoping our own love lives will be just like a rom-com.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
But the article points to some more practical factors too, right?
Uh-huh. Like financial stress.
Oh, right.
That's consistently one of the top reasons for problems in marriages.
Makes sense.
When couples are struggling with money.
Whether it's job loss or debt or just different ways of spending.
Yeah, any of that stuff puts a ton of pressure on the relationship.
Yeah, you can just imagine the tension.
It's constant.
And then you add in communication breakdowns and losing that emotional intimacy.
Exactly.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
Downward spiral.
The article emphasizes how many couples who end up divorcing say they just gradually drifted apart.
Yeah, it's sad.
They might have stopped spending quality time together.
Or maybe they lost that ability to really talk to each other.
It's like they forgot how to communicate.
Perhaps.
And sometimes it's even more complicated than that, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
The article also talks about infidelity and how people's attitudes towards monogamy are changing.
It's a whole different world now with social media and dating apps.
Oh, for sure.
It's so easy to connect with people outside of your marriage.
And that can lead to people breaking their vows.
Sadly, yeah.
It's tough to hear, but the statistics show that over 20% of divorces involve infidelity in some way.
It's a painful reality.
So we've talked about why people get divorced, but the article brings up a really interesting question.
What's that?
Why is it so easy to get married, but then so complicated to get divorced?
Oh, that's a good one.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, think of it this way. Marriage is basically a legal contract.
Right.
You sign a paper, pay some money, and bam, you're married.
Simple.
But divorce is about untangling that contract, but also all the assets, the money, and often all those complex emotions that have built up over the years.
Yeah, not to mention if there are kids involved.
Exactly.
That adds a whole other level of legal and emotional baggage.
It does.
And you know what I found interesting in the article? It talked about how the legal system itself actually benefits financially from divorce.
Oh, wait.
It said the divorce industry makes billions of dollars every year in the U.S. alone.
Wow.
It makes you wonder if that financial side might be contributing to how long and complicated divorce proceedings can get.
It's a valid point.
It's definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
This whole easy marriage, hard divorce thing makes you think about whether we're really preparing couples for both sides of it.
It's a big question.
It's an important one, though.
Definitely.
And it leads us to another big part of this conversation.
Hmm.
The impact of divorce goes way beyond the couple themselves.
You're right. It has ripple effects on all of society.
Okay, let's dive into that in part 2.
One of the first things you see is the rise of single-parent households.
Oh, yeah.
The article says over 25% of kids in America live in single-parent homes now.
That's a lot of kids.
It
makes you think about how that shift in family structure might be shaping how younger generations see marriage and commitment, you know?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Like if you grew up in a divorced family,
All right.
how did that shape your own views on relationships?
Interesting.
Something to ponder.
Definitely. But while we often talk about the kids in the future,
Mm-hmm.
there's another group that we tend to forget about in all this divorce stuff.
Who's that?
The men.
Oh, that's true.
The article made this point that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Okay.
Divorce impacts men in a really specific way.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear more about that.
Did you know that studies have shown divorced men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide
Whoa, 9 times.
than married men?
That's
It's a serious issue.
that's really heavy.
It is.
It's sad to think about how much pain and isolation some men must be going through after a divorce.
Yeah,
But it does feel like we don't talk about that enough.
it often gets overshadowed. And it's not just the emotional side either.
Right.
In custody battles, mothers are often favored,
Okay.
and that can make fathers feel really alienated from their children.
I see.
Plus, on top of that, they may be dealing with alimony and child support payments.
That's a lot to handle.
It's a lot of financial burden.
Yeah.
All of that together can really impact their mental health.
It's a complex issue for sure.
Definitely.
We need to be more open about the challenges men face
Absolutely.
during and after divorce.
And make sure there's support out there to help them.
Help them through it.
Exactly.
It's good that the article at least talks about some potential solutions, right?
It does, which is good.
I was worried it was just going to lay out all these problems without offering any hope.
Right.
So what kind of solutions are they suggesting?
One idea is mandatory premarital counseling,
Oh, that's interesting.
to help couples build a strong foundation from the start.
Yeah, like give them the tools to communicate and work through conflict.
Exactly.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right.
It's about handling it in a healthy way when it comes up.
That's the key.
I like that.
The article also talks about stronger marriage contract.
Oh, like prenups.
Yeah,
I think when people hear prenup, they automatically think about money.
it's true.
But the article is talking about something bigger, right?
Yeah, it's about having those tough conversations up front
Before you even get married.
about money, expectations, potential problems.
It's like creating a roadmap for the marriage.
I like that analogy.
Acknowledging that there will be bumps along the way.
But having a plan for how to deal with them together,
Exactly.
that kind of communication can really make a relationship stronger.
I agree.
It's not about being negative. It's about being realistic.
And proactive.
Exactly.
Love it.
So we've talked about a lot today.
Yeah, we have.
From the history of divorce to that divorce boom,
Mm.
to the impact on society, and even how men are affected in particular.
It's been a deep dive for sure.
It's important to remember that this is a huge topic.
We've only scratched the surface.
The conversation really starts now.
That's true.
What kind of future do we want for marriage and family?
Yeah, it's a big question.
What role will technology and changing gender roles and all these evolving social norms play in shaping relationships moving forward?
Lots to think about.
That conversation we need to keep having.
For sure, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to ponder.
Me too.
It's been great talking with you.
Likewise.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has been like a whirlwind.
Mhm.
So much info, all these scats, and just things that make you really think.
Makes you wonder.
I feel like I get it now, you know?
Yeah.
Not just the history of divorce in America, but all the stuff that leads to it.
All the different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and how it affects people, families, and like all of society.
It's bigger than just the two people involved.
Way bigger.
It is.
It'd be easy to just feel kind of down after all this,
Yeah.
like pessimistic about the future of relationships.
Yeah, I get that.
But I think what we really need to remember
Mhm.
is how important it is to just talk about this stuff.
Keep the conversation going.
Exactly. Challenge our ideas about marriage and family.
Be open to different perspective.
And it's not just talking about it.
Right.
It's about actually doing something.
Taking action.
If we want things to change,
Uh-huh.
we have to put in the work,
What kind of work are you thinking about?
Like going to premarital counseling or even just being willing to have those hard convos with our partners.
Being honest with each other.
Yeah, and just paying more attention to how things are going in our own relationships.
Be mindful.
The future of marriage and family isn't set in stone.
It's a work in progress.
We're shaping it every day.
With our choices, our actions, our conversations.
Well said.
Thanks.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening.
I've learned a lot.
Me too. I have a whole new way of thinking about divorce now and its role in society.
It's always changing.
Always.
It's been great diving into this with you.
Likewise, thanks for being here.
Of course.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you some stuff to think about, maybe even spark some interesting conversations around the dinner table. Keep those minds curious, and we'll see you next time.